Let's talk about Plato. Yeah, that Plato. One of the greatest thinkers in history was afraid of something. Something he believed was so powerful it could bring down a whole society. And honestly, his fear is probably more relevant right now than it was 2,000 years ago.
So here's the big question. The thing that seems like a total contradiction. Why would Plato, a guy whose whole brand was logic and reason, want to literally ban poets and storytellers from his perfect city? I mean, what could he possibly have been so afraid of?
Well, there it is. He thought artists were dangerous, and not in some abstract philosophical way. He meant they were a genuine threat. Why? Because they wield a unique kind of power, the power to tap into our emotions and completely bypass our rational minds. Plato was terrified of what you might call representational force. See, a storyteller doesn't just hold up a mirror to reality. Nope, they frame it. They connect the dots, they give events a purpose, and in doing so, they're not just showing you the world. They're handing you a brand new pair of glasses to see it through. And this right here is the absolute key. The power of a story, its currency, isn't whether it's factually true, it's whether it creates meaning. A good narrative tells you not just what happened, but what it all means, how you're supposed to feel about it. And that feeling, that's way more powerful than any dry fact. Okay, to really get this, we have to dig a little deeper. We have to look for the story under the story. These are the invisible currents, the hidden forces that are quietly shaping everything about our world. And this is the big aha moment. Think about the difference between a story and a narrative. A story is the tree. It's the part we see, the part we consciously consume for entertainment. But the narrative? Oh, the narrative is the roots. It's deep, unconscious, and it's feeding the whole system, influencing how we think without us even realizing it's there. These foundational narratives are basically the operating system for your culture. You download them from the moment you're born. They tell you who you are, what's important, what's right, what's wrong. They're the software that processes all the data you take in. And the crazy part is, most of us never even know it's running. Now, because these root-level narratives are so incredibly powerful, they can be turned into a weapon. Which brings us to a pretty dark topic, narrative warfare, and the four-step process for, well, colonizing someone's mind. And let's be clear about the goal here, because it's truly sinister. This isn't about winning a debate. No, the real objective is to get the target to absorb the narrative so completely that they start doing the work themselves. They become their own attacker, policing their own thoughts to stay in line with the news story. So here's the playbook, the four-step recipe for manipulation. First, you build a phony structure. Then you re-describe the world into simple categories. After that, you get the target to internalize a new role, which finally gives them a prescription, a clear set of instructions on what to do next. Step 1, structure, is all about creating a fake cause and effect relationship. It's a classic logical fallacy. After this, therefore because of this. All you have to do is say, first this bad thing happened, and then that bad thing happened. Our brains are wired to see a connection, a cause, even if one doesn't exist at all. Then comes step 2, re-description. This is where you paint the world in black and white. No more complexity, no more nuance. There's just us and them. We are the good guys, the victims, and they are the aggressors, the source of all our problems. It's simple, it's powerful, and it is incredibly divisive. All right, pay attention, because this is the critical turning point. The first 2 steps are just setting the trap. Steps 3 and 4 are when the trap springs. This is the moment the target's own mind gets turned into the weapon. First, they internalize this new identity. They start to genuinely see themselves as a victim, even if they've never personally suffered. They've been handed a new story about who they are. And that new identity comes with a script, a prescription that tells them how to think, feel, and act. The description literally becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So, if this is happening all around us, why is it so damn hard to push back? Well, the tough truth is that our go-to strategy, the counter-narrative, is usually the equivalent of trying to put out a fire by dousing it with gasoline. Okay, let's imagine the adversary puts out a very simple, very sticky frame. Let's say it's just, them are evil. It's emotional, it's easy to remember, it spreads like wildfire. What's our first instinct? It's to jump up and say, that's not true. We are not them.
We defend ourselves by defining what we aren't.
But just look at that for a second. Do you see the trap we've just walked into? What's the massive flaw in that response?
Here's the problem. You're still talking about them. The moment you say we are not them, you've accepted their frame. You're playing defense on their field, using their vocabulary, and actually making their narrative the center of the conversation. You're just giving it more oxygen.
So what's the answer? The answer isn't to try and fight their story with your story. The real solution is to get there first. It's to disrupt their entire cognitive frame before it has a chance to harden in people's minds. You have to change the game, not just play it better. And that brings us to the most important part of all of this. Because the ultimate defense against this kind of manipulation, it isn't about fighting them. It's about understanding you. It's about knowing the soil your own beliefs are planted in. This quote really says it all. If you just blindly inherit your identity, if you never question the stories you were raised with, you're vulnerable. But an identity that you have consciously chosen, one you've thought about, questioned, and built for yourself, that becomes a shield. So how do you actually arm yourself? First, you learn the playbook. You see the techniques for what they are, which is what we're doing right now. Then comes the hard part. You have to drag your own unconscious narratives, those roots, out into the sunlight. You have to question the stories you've been told your whole life. And then you get to decide. You choose who you want to be for yourself.
Which really leaves us with just one big final question. Everything we do, everything we believe, is guided by a story. So you have to ask yourself, what are the stories you're living by? And more importantly, were they stories that you chose for yourself?